إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن وهو بكل شيء عليم وأشهد أن حبيبنا ومولانا وسيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. فيا أيها الإخوة والأخوات, my dear brothers and sisters, we start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in infinite and abundant praise, and we ask Him to send His peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and upon his family and his companion and all the believers everywhere. Today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I want to talk to you about a very basic and primary subject. And this topic actually came to my mind due to many trends and signs that I've been witnessing in society as of late. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, when I was driving past the cemetery, and we all know the cemetery from this community, the one on Westminster and Beach, I noticed a big, huge billboard. And many of you have perhaps seen it. Maybe some people paid attention and some people didn't. But I think it's important that we pay attention to these things that are around us, that we see going on around us. It's a big billboard, and on this billboard there's a picture of this man, and he's supposed to appear as if he has some connection with the divine, as this Greek and Roman thought, how they actually have man who is God. And so they have this picture. Supposedly you're supposed to think it has something to do with divine, although we don't have any such thoughts as such. And underneath, or on the side of this man, he's pointing to the sky. It says in very big words and bold words, it says, God is imaginary, choose reality, it is better for all of us. God is imaginary, choose reality, it is better for all of us. Now this caught my eye for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's I took it as a very offensive statement. Myself being a believer in God, of course. And secondly, the place where they put this particular sign, they put it right across from the cemetery, intentionally, purposefully. Why? Because they are sending a message, and of course this message is put up by the atheists. They are sending a message to people, and where do people turn to when they go to the cemetery to bury their loved ones? People are hurting in a time of pain and loss, and the one place they know where to go is to Allah. And at this most difficult time, these people are saying this is a fantasy, that this God that you are turning to is a fantasy, it's not reality. And so, brothers and sisters, I wanted to focus on this subject today, the issue of atheism, and what we see taking place in society today in regards to this particular issue. What has happened, and what we see when we see these billboards being displayed, and they're putting out thousands and tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars out to display these billboards across the country, and in many different subjects and titles, and I'll express some of those to you, inshallah. But we have what this indicates to us, that the atheist platform has shifted. It has shifted from just being a personal belief to an ideology that they are actively trying to spread in society. In other words, they have stepped up their da'wah. They have took their da'wah to another level. And some people, we may think that it's a non-issue, and in some ways it is. Wallahi, in some ways it is. Because there will always be people who are far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perhaps there is not much we can do about them. But we have to, as Muslims, reflect and look deeper at the issue and see what does this really mean. Obviously, this means that people have went far, far astray and far, far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this affects us directly as Muslims. How? We have been told of young people, we have been told of old people in our community who are falling prey to this ideology. I gave a khutbah on this exact same subject a couple of weeks ago, another masjid, and somebody after the khutbah, he came to me, he said, my brother, he used to be a practicing Muslim, pray, fast, everything, and now he argues, he's trying to call me to atheism. Our children at our schools, in high school and in college, are being fed this. If you talk to your children, they will tell you this, that professors in their schools, under the guise of freedom of speech, are now spreading this ideology. So it is a reality, and it is a reality that they're trying to take forward. And they're spending money and utilizing resources and mobilizing and recruiting and so on and so forth, calling people towards this non-belief in God. And sometimes it's directed very pointedly at Muslims themselves. There is a billboard they put up in Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson, New Jersey is the home to a very large Muslim population. There is a very huge masjid there. Sheikh Al-Qatanani is the imam there. He is known to the imams of America and so forth. They put up a billboard. On the billboard they wrote Lafzul Jalala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His name, in big huge letters, Allah in Arabic. And next to it they wrote in Arabic, and they also translated in English, they wrote these words. They said, تعرفون أنها خرافة ولكم أيضا حرية الاختيار. They said that you know that this is a fantasy, a fallacy. That Allah is a fantasy. This is what they're saying. And you also have the freedom of choice. As if they're demeaning us as Muslims by saying, and you also, like Muslims, you people who don't know anything, as if you also have this choice of freedom and not to believe in something just because your ancestors, they gave it to you. So a very direct push that they're making. And they're doing this the same to other faith communities as well, to the Christians and Jews and so on and so forth. So what do we do? And how do we deal with this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told us the path and the way of the mu'min when we deal with society and we call people. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That who is better in speech than the one who calls to Allah and he does good works and he says that I am from the believers. In other words, we have to take an active approach. We have to address this issue head on. Have to tell people about God, about Allah. Our basic beliefs, they have to be spread in society, and we have to start with our own homes. Unfortunately, many times we find many Muslim homes, we teach our children about prayer, we teach our children about fasting, and we teach them about the particulars. But sometimes we don't fully equip them and engage them in everyday conversation with who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And what are the evidences for the existence of Allah? This most basic thought, we know it in our hearts. It's part of our fitrah. As the Prophet ﷺ told us, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ, that everybody is born upon this natural state of knowing that there is one God. But it's something we also have to engage our kids with and talk to them about. And this conclusion that we have to reach, that Allah is one, Tawheed, is something that we have to come to ourselves. It's not something that we just take from the old generation and now. No, we have to realize it, actualize it, ponder, reflect, meditate on the universe to come to this conclusion. And we should not become legalistic Muslims. The Christians, they use this term, they call it legalism. That people who just practice the faith, but they're just going through motions, going through rituals, but they don't have this faith. They don't have this deeper iman in their heart. So we have to deal with their arguments. The arguments of the atheists are not that many. And wallahi, they're very easy to refute, but we should learn them for the sake of being able to deal with society. And the atheists, they say, for example, they say that this universe, it came into being, this design, it came into being by accident. It just came from nowhere. So we have to be able to refute that with logical arguments. With logical arguments. And the Quran, my brothers and sisters, is full of these logical arguments. And we answer to them in we don't have to quote text. We don't have to quote religious text to answer them. We tell them, even if you had numerous accidents again and again and again, over and over again, you would not come with this. If you took paint, a bucket of paint, and you threw it against the wall, you may accidentally get the shape of a hand, something that looks like a hand figure or a head, or something vague figure that looks like something. However, if you take many different colors of paint and mix them all together and you throw them on the wall, you will get nothing but splats of paint. If you do that 1 time, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000,000 times, you will never come up with the Mona Lisa. I don't know why we use the example of Mona Lisa. I don't see the explicit beauty in it, but this is what people think is beautiful. You will never come up with that if you do this 1,000,000 times. So how can you say that this creation came into being by accident? How did it just happen? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says beautifully in this ayah in Surah Luqman, هَذَا خَلْقُ اللَّهِ فَأَرُونِي مَاذَا خَلَقَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ بَلِ الظَّالِمُونَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. This is the creation of Allah. So show me that which other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Nobody has the ability to create except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If all of humanity came together as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us and tried to create even a fly, we could not do that. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ability to give life. But al-zalimun, those people who oppress their own selves, they are definitely in astray. So this is the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, and we use with them logic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the ayah in Surah At-Tur, He tells us the possibilities of existence. What are the possibilities? He says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. 2 options that He gives. He says, were they created from nothing, or are they themselves the creators? Were they created from nothing? This is what they claim, that the world came from nothing. How can something come from nothing? You cannot build a car from nothing. You cannot build a masjid from nothing. You cannot build anything from nothing. How can you build this beautiful universe from nothing? أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or are they themselves the creators? Are they themselves to put together all of the beauty that we see around us? Nobody will make that claim. And even if they do make that claim, they themselves had to have come from something. So again, you're going back to this nonsensical argument that something came from nothing. So there's only a third logical choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't say it explicit because it's understood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who Himself was never created, He is the creator of all. So we use this logical type of argument with them. And how is it possible that we have this beautiful universe around us and it came from nothing? If you take this universe and you compare it to a house, and many ayat in the Quran, they use language that if we take this analogy and we take this these ayat and we look and we say that like this world is a perfect house. You have the ceiling is like the sky, and or the sky is like the ceiling, and the earth is like a carpet. It's laid out, and it's like a bed or the sofa, and the different words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses. It's mihad, and it's bisat, and it's sakan, and it's furash. And the sun and the moon are these two chandeliers shining bright in the sky, and the stars are like the accent lighting. And you have the plants that give us sustenance and food, and they're sweet and they're sour and there's bland and they're spicy. And you have the flowers that serve as decoration, and you have the animals that we have different usages for, that they serve as transport and security, and we take from them food. And on and on and on and on. And we have the earth and the wind and the fire and all of these beautiful parts of creation that make this beautiful thing that we call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. As if there's this beautiful house. Where does it come from? A house is built from nothing. It comes from nothing at all. The argument, of course, it holds no value. Recently I went to an interfaith panel, and this is a scary thing. In an interfaith panel now, it's almost becoming a standard to have a Jew, Christian, a Muslim, maybe some people from other faiths, and they'll have an atheist. As if that's a formalized religion to bring that person to the table. And recently I went to a panel, and there was the Jewish rabbi. When he saw the atheist, he started questioning him. He was surprised. He says, "You're atheist? You're just confused, or you don't know, or what's the issue?" And so the man was forced to answer. He says, "I have not seen enough evidence yet." Have not seen enough evidence yet? Everything that you look around you is evidence for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. That, have you not seen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made everything in this world subject to you, O man? Not only that all of creation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put together is put together for our use as human beings. Everything that's in the heavens and the earth. But yet, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He still does let us know that there will still be people who turn away. And the rest of the ayah reads, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدَى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ. But there are still people who will argue with you. Even though you show them the evidence, they'll still argue with you. And they have no knowledge, nor are they guided, nor do they have any book of revelation to guide them. And when we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, we say, Subhanallah, Badi'u samawati wal ard, the one who made all of this beauty that we say, Sun Allah alladhi atqana kulla shay, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who perfected everything, and on and on and on, when we look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. And this is the most common a Quranic argument that we should learn and we should use with people. That argument that the existence of God can be proven by looking at His creation. And this notion that the design indicates that there is a designer. And this is actually the language the philosophers of old would use, Plato and Aristotle and so on. They came to the conclusion that there is God by logic, that the design that you see around you is an indication that there is a great designer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And in the earth there are signs for those who have yaqeen, for those who have certainties, for those who know for sure that there is a creator. You look in the earth, look at everything around you. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا. Even in your own self. Even in your own self there are signs. Do you not think? Do you not sit and reflect? Do you not ponder upon the universe? And how many people walk through this world blind? They look, but they don't see. Their eyes, they just see shapes and images, but they cannot see the reality of matters. And somebody said beautifully once, Al-uyun tara as-suwar وَالْقُلُوبِ تَرَى الْمُصَوِّرِ. Allahu Akbar. That they said, the eyes, they see images, but the hearts are what see the one who makes these images and creates these images. And that's why we read in the beautiful ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارِ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبَ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. Allahu Akbar. That it is the visions of people that are blind. But rather it is the hearts in the chests that are actually blind. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ادعوا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. Two important points that I want to leave you with, my brothers and sisters. Number one, why is this a dangerous fad and trend that we're seeing in society? It is as if the atheists, in the name of free speech and civilization and intellect, using these criteria, they have sunk lower than even the pagan Arabs in certain ways. Because the pagan Arabs, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Jahiliyyah, before the time of the Prophet sallallahu and those who disbelieved in the beginning, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ لَيَقُولُنَّ Allah. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, these people who worshipped idols, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they would say Allah. They know that much. But these people are even denying this much. So what is in my personal opinion, that atheism is dangerous. Why? Because it is the byproduct of moral decay and decline. That society is reaching to new lows, to the point where they're coming up with these strange type of conclusions. All morality is lost. And therefore, they've come up with this conclusion, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Don't be like those who forgot Allah, because then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will even make themselves forget their own selves. And they forget their own selves to the point that they forget Allah and they deny Allah. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. And these people are definitely are people who are corrupt. This is the epitome of corruption. This is the epitome of having gone astray. So it's not just a matter of belief, atheism, but it's a matter of the moral trajectory of society, where it has gone to the point that now it can be an ideology that is spread, and that unfortunately is even gaining this kind of a momentum. And the atheists, they say very dangerous things. And they come up with these intellectual arguments that are very disturbing to us as Muslims. They'll say that it is not God who created man, but it is man who created God. As if they have reached the epitome of intellect to have come to this conclusion. And then they talk about this world and this issue of moral decay. They say that it will never come again, this life, it will never come again. And that is what makes life so sweet. So they're calling for people to do whatever you want, live any way you want to, and there's no accountability, and therefore it is encouraging people to live in any type of moral decrepit manner. And the last point, brothers and sisters, I want to leave you with is a positive note. And that is that, with every challenge and crisis, there's an opportunity, as the saying goes. And the atheists, unfortunately, they have turned to attacking religious beliefs, religious symbols, very directly, as I explained. And they've stepped into the realm of the sacrilegious, defaming other people's beliefs and so on. We as Muslims, we don't do that. We don't. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told us, don't curse their gods, because then they will curse who? They will curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't take that route. But the fact that they're doing that, it shows that to some extent they are using their intellect to fight off those beliefs which are false. And that is an advantage for us because they are yet to attack our religion with anything of substance. They've come with periphery attacks attacking the actions of Muslims but not the belief of Muslims, because they cannot. So they have a billboard somewhere that says atheists do not fly planes into buildings. There's nothing to do with our religion, flying planes into this garbage. So we take no offense to that. So the point is that what? They're attacking other religions and their beliefs directly because they intellectually cannot accept those ideologies, the Trinity and other things. Which means that there is hope for us to deal with them intellectually, and it is an opportunity for us to be able to reach them with the intellectual arguments and the rational arguments that we possess and that we know that tell us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and that our deen is truth. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to be from those who spread this message of truth to those who may be astray and those who are lost in this world. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who can properly convey the correct message of Islam and to be as guides for humanity. Allahumma inni da'in faqulu ameen. Allahumma aghfir lil muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qareebun mujibu da'awat. Allahumma a'izz al islam wal muslimin. اللهم انصر المجاهدين في كل مكان. اللهم أعلي بفضلك وكرمك كلمتي الحق والدين. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا بيننا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.